The panel of teachers includes Nancy Stevens, who has taught for 26 years, 6 of that in computer science. She has also taught with the Beauty and Joy of Computing curriculum for 4 years and is also a facilitator with Code.org. Madeline Drayton is also a BJC teacher. She has been teaching for 10 years, all of it in computer science, and has taught with BJC for 6 years. Madeline is also one of the BJC master teachers and is a PD leader who facilitates for the Beauty and Joy of Computing professional development workshops. Leslie Keller has been teaching for 15 years, 11 of those years in computer science. She's taught with the Beauty and Joy of Computing curriculum for 5 years. In addition to teaching, she's also the program director for the Beauty and Joy of Computing professional development.
Okay, I'll start.
Yeah.
I like the creative side of BJC where the students get to be more creative with their programming concepts. And then also with the discussion where we talk about innovations and technology and how it affects our lives. And then they get these epiphanies about, privacy issues and how we really don't have those issues, privacy at all. And I like the feedback that they provide. So it's more conversational as opposed to, write this program. And so they get to be, again, more creative.
I agree, and I like the fact that it involves reading, writing, math, the investigative part of science courses. It all comes together, all of their academics, into one curriculum, and I think that's what makes it special.
I agree, yes.
Yeah, and I'll add, in addition to what they've said, the whole aspect of pair programming and working collaboratively. You have some of the scaffolding where you're using colors and blocks for coding, which I think helps with a barrier to entry for students that have never taken computer science before. But then working collaboratively with other students, I think is empowering and encouraging for students.
I'll just add to what you just said about the reading component, because our district has a literacy requirement. And this is one curriculum that has that built in, where we don't have to search for other materials to add it. So this is
I also think in my experience, it's the one course that really is 21 first century material. It's written at that level where students have to be investigative, they have to collaborate, and I think it's really the goal that a lot of our curriculum should have, is to have all those components in it.
True. We talked about it as far as
we did.
Trying to be more hands-off with the students and letting them lead and be creative and not giving them get more prompting as opposed to, going ahead and giving them the answers. And so that's the challenging part to me sometimes. Yeah.
It's the challenging part for me all the time. As teachers, we want to show and demonstrate, and we excel in procedural kinds of teaching, and this really isn't meant to be that.
Exactly.
And so we have to stand back and hope that students can take charge of their own learning a little bit more in the classroom. So that's the challenge for me too.
Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely not a teacher-led classroom. It's very much a student-centric classroom and it's not quiet. You do have the collaboration going on, and then as a teacher, you're just walking around facilitating and coaching and prompting and encouraging them to collaborate and be creative.
And to use their resources. A lot of times they forget that they have the resources available, and they start relying heavily on you, again, to give them the answer. And where we've just covered a topic they just want to forget about that topic that we covered in the previous unit. And when we move on to the next unit, I said, you got to take that with you. You need to use that material.
It builds.
Yes, it builds, exactly.
I think the pair programming helps with that. When you're actively encouraging students to talk it out, to discuss it, to come up with how to solve the problem before you ever start coding, to determine the algorithm. So that talking it out with their partner, they become the teachers for themselves. So that all you may need to do is prompt them to go a little bit further.
Yeah, and that's the first thing you have to do in the course, that Unit 1, is you're setting the norms for your classroom and the expectation that they work together. The pair programming typically works very well, but there's problems with pair programming that I've experienced. You know, there are little lone wolves in every classroom that feel like a partner slows them down in some way. There are students that just haven't had to collaborate
Ever.
Yes.
And just don't want to deal with
And
it.
don't want to deal with it, exactly.
So one thing I've done to get back to things that I've learned, I do let my students self-select their partners at the beginning of the year. And then I just observe how the groups are working together. And then I make changes as I need to make changes. Students that tend to be kind of high performing know who that person
Exactly.
is.
And they tend to
Yeah, and they
flock
pair up,
together. Yeah,
and I'm
pair up.
fine with that because it can be very frustrating to force them into another. But if I can put that pair closer to a pair that's maybe struggling, then those two groups can come together as they need be. And so that's worked pretty well for me.
Yeah. I think not only their knowledge or comfort level with the programming or computer science aspect, but I think their work ethic, their level of what they're willing to invest into it makes a difference. So if you get the kids together and they do start recognizing each other, they'll start pairing up with someone that has about their same levels.
Yes.
And then for specific individual students that may be challenged in any number of ways, you can spot the people that you know will work well with that student, whether they're on the autism spectrum or they just don't want to work with a partner or whatever. You can slowly start to get those pairs where it optimizes.
Yeah, I just let them self-select as well. But then for the next project, they are required to find someone else to work with. And it will have to be someone on the other side of the room because everyone tend to flock together on the same side of the room. So it would have to be someone on the other side of the room. And then we'll change again to someone else so that they get comfortable, because in the real world, you're going to have to work with all sorts of people. So you're going to have to learn how to adjust. So that's what we're preparing them for the real world. So this is what I try to do in my classroom.
One thing I've started really thinking about is because, we do have those students that like to manipulate our time.
Yes.
With the hands up in the air.
Yes.
And once we get going on a lesson, I right away I look at those hands and I say, put them down. Because I'm not going to race over and show you how to do something. This is for you to take the lead and read the instructions, the lab, and talk to your partner. And so I've started to ignore the students that put their hands up in the air.
Sometimes, or I will use my high fly. I call them my high flyers, the ones that excel and pick it up pretty quickly. So I'll say, go over there and help that student, so that I'm not always the one that they're calling, because you tend to just like, I'm on one side of the room, then I see this hand, and I have to stop in the middle and say, I cannot continue to do it this way. So I start using my other students that pick it up pretty quickly. And also because if I go to help a student, as opposed to telling them what to do next, I prompt them because I'm not in their heads. I'm not understanding their thought process behind their program. So I said, what was your thought process, and what do you think you should do next? Or get out a piece of paper and write down the algorithm of what you're doing. Which block do you think you should use for this next process that we've already used? And so once they start going in that route and thinking about it, then they say, oh, then they get the light bulb. It comes on. So, yeah.
Yeah, you make a really good point about it's really difficult to look at what a student has done on their own and figure out what they were thinking.
You can't, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. So,
There are common mistakes
Yes,
that
yes.
I can help students with, but other than that,
Yes.
and for a student to understand why I don't understand
I know that's
what
the
I'm
thing. They think
looking
you don't
at.
know what you're talking about, but I'm like, I'm not sure what you were trying to do here. So explain to me what you were trying to do, and then maybe we can move forward from there. But I can't, because then what they were trying to do has nothing to do with what they put in that program. So then they would have to go back and revisit all the codes. So
So
yeah.
our comfort level in the classroom is constantly challenged.
Yes. It is.
So I think that's something teachers have to be prepared for, is that you're going to be learning every day from your students.
Yes.
You're going to be wowed at times, and at other times you're going to be, there's 360 degrees in a circle. Remember?
And it's okay to say, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's try to figure this out together. You know, so it's okay.
Yeah. I like to challenge students to actually go out and find the answer and then come back and share it with class.
Yes. Oh,
Which
they
is,
love to share.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yes. If they can stand up and, say, well, I learned this, and hey, did you know we could also do this? Because the more you encourage them to play within the SNAP IDE,
Yes.
the more they learn about the blocks and the more comfortable they get with it. And then, again, kind of going back to their pair programming, making them talk out how to solve the problem, because I think in any computer science class, including BJC, it's all about coming up with how to solve the problem. What's the algorithm before you ever start coding? And so that's the encouragement. I also introduce them to what's called rubber duck debugging, which is the same type of concept as pair programming, except for it's an inanimate object, where you're literally just trying to say, okay, this is my problem, and as you get the student to define the problem, they come up with their solution.
And there's more than one solution.
There's always more than one solution.
There's not always one right solution. Right. So, yeah. I have students that sometimes just want to skim directions and not actually, go through the actual requirements that are given to them. And they're looking for me to tell them what to do. And I said, did you follow instructions? And so, yes. I said, are you sure? So and then they have to go back, and then they'll say, oh yeah, I missed that. Okay, so I have to make them go back and reread what was given to them and re-follow the instructions. It's given to you step by step. It's there. Just follow the instructions. So a lot of students, they want to skim.
Yeah, so quickly you identify the students that are the readers.
And the skimmers.
Yep, and the skimmers.
I have quite a few.
Yeah, and the students that have persistence.
Yes.
That comes out very quickly. And then there's also the risk takers.
Yes.
And those tend to be my favorite students because there's all sorts of blocks and things they'll try that we've not discussed, and that's what we want to see happen.
Yeah. Yeah. The more they plan it, the better off they are.
You have to encourage play.
The reading the instructions is critical.
Critical.
If you miss any line of the instructions, then you're going to get hung up. Some students will do better in their pairs talking it out. Some students are better with navigating, and other students are better with actually building. So, a lot of times those partners will define within their partnership how they're going to be the most successful in actually using pair programming, even though they have to switch off so that one isn't always navigating or driving.
Exactly.
But, I think sometimes you can face the challenge of the student that just does not want to work with another person, either personality-wise or learning disability or whatever. And that's, again, where you have to be very aware in the classroom and find those students that are going to work well. I had a student who was autistic, and a lot of students were uncomfortable working with them. But I found one young lady that was fantastic working with them, and I let them pair up for the rest of the year. And they were both very happy with that situation. She was very supportive. He was very bright when it came to the actual programming parts of it. But she could help with his communication and following those instructions.
And I always bring it back to the performance requirements, because they have 2 performance tasks that they have to complete. The first practice, we walked through it together, but then I said, you're going to be on your own, and I'm going to provide you with the rubric. And if you don't follow the requirements in the rubric, you're not going to get credit for that project. So I'm trying to get them into practice, into habits of making sure they follow the requirements. Because even in the real world, when you are either a project leader or
Right.
writing the project, you still have to go with the requirements of what's given to you, or the project's not complete.